The marble floors of Wellington Enterprises sparkled beneath the morning sunlight, each reflection a reminder of the empire Victoria Wellington had built through sheer determination and brilliance. As one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, she had everything: power, influence, and respect. Yet beneath her tailored suit and confident smile, Victoria carried an arrogance that made her unapproachable. To her, success was about numbers, not people. Her board members adored her for her intelligence but whispered behind her back that she was disconnected from reality, too privileged to understand the struggles of ordinary workers. That whisper reached her ears one day, and it stung more than she cared to admit. So when she overheard two senior executives joking that, even the janitor probably knows more about human values than she does, Victoria decided to prove them wrong in her own way. That evening, the building was nearly empty when she stepped out of her corner office. The halls were quiet except for the faint hum of the cleaning machines. Near the executive lounge stood James Turner, the night janitor, an older man with silver hair, a weary but kind face, and a mop in hand. His uniform was worn, but he carried himself with quiet dignity. Victoria paused, her heels clicking on the marble as she approached him. "Mr. Turner," she said casually, amusement lacing her tone, "tell me something. If you were running a billion-dollar company like mine, what would you invest in next?" She expected confusion or nervous laughter. Instead, James looked up, his brown eyes steady and clear. "If I were in your position, ma'am," he said softly, "I'd invest in the people who clean your floors, before you lose them." His words cut through the silence like a blade. For a moment, Victoria forgot to breathe. The janitor didn't flinch or back away, he simply went back to mopping, as if he'd said nothing unusual. Victoria stood frozen, her smirk gone, the echo of his words sinking deeper than she wanted to admit. As she turned to leave, she glanced back once more at the humble man who had just shattered her pride with a single sentence. She didn't know it yet, but that one conversation was about to change everything. That night, Victoria Wellington couldn't sleep. The janitor's words replayed in her mind, "I'd invest in the people who clean your floors before you lose them." It sounded simple, even naive, but something about his tone haunted her. The next morning, as she walked through the gleaming corridors of Wellington Enterprises, she began noticing things she'd never paid attention to before. The tired eyes of the receptionist who greeted her every day, the cafeteria workers moving hurriedly with no time to rest, and the janitors who vanished into the background after hours of silent work. For years, Victoria had believed efficiency came from discipline and order, but now she saw cracks. Small, invisible fractures beneath her empire's polished surface. Out of curiosity, she asked her HR manager for internal reports on staff turnover and was stunned. The company had lost hundreds of lower-level employees in the past year alone, costing millions in retraining and hiring. No one had ever pointed it out because no one had cared enough to. That evening, long after the office had emptied, Victoria found herself lingering again, waiting for the man who had unknowingly shaken her beliefs. When James Turner appeared, pushing his cleaning cart down the hall, she stepped forward hesitantly. "Mr. Turner," she said, her voice softer than before, "what you said yesterday, it got me thinking. Why do you believe investing in people matters so much?" He paused, leaning on his mop, and studied her for a moment. "Because people don't build loyalty with paychecks, ma'am," he said. "They build it with respect. When they feel invisible, they stop caring. And when they stop caring, everything you've built starts to crumble." His words were calm, measured, but filled with truth. Victoria leaned against the wall, silently processing every syllable. "You talk like someone who's led people before," she observed. A faint smile touched his face. "I did once. Owned a small business before life taught me a few hard lessons." Victoria wanted to ask more, but something in his eyes, something quietly wounded, made her stop. As she left that night, the city lights glimmering beyond the glass walls, she realized for the first time in years that leadership wasn't just about vision or profit. It was about people. And she had a lot to learn. Over the next few weeks, Victoria Wellington began to change in subtle but undeniable ways. Her mornings started earlier, her walks through the office became longer, and her questions grew more personal. She stopped talking only to her executives and started speaking with the employees who kept the company running, the ones who had always been invisible to her. It startled her how freely they spoke once she showed genuine interest. She heard stories of missed promotions, unfair workloads, and broken systems no one had ever bothered to fix. Each story was another mirror held up to her leadership. One afternoon, she found herself sitting in the cafeteria beside James Turner, ignoring the stunned expressions of her staff. "Tell me," she said, sipping coffee from a paper cup instead of her usual porcelain mug, "how do you keep believing in people after everything you've been through?" James looked at her thoughtfully before replying, "Because people are the only investment that never truly goes to waste. Even when they fail, you learn what loyalty and kindness are worth." His answer lingered in her chest long after she left the table. Inspired, Victoria implemented small but powerful changes. She improved the company's healthcare plan, increased wages for janitors and cafeteria workers, and began writing handwritten thank you notes for long-serving employees. The shift in atmosphere was immediate. Smiles replaced frowns. Conversations grew livelier. Productivity soared. But what surprised Victoria most wasn't the numbers, it was how alive she began to feel. For the first time, she wasn't just leading, she was connecting. Late one evening, as the sun bled into the skyline, she met James on the rooftop garden where he often took his break. "You've changed this place," she said softly. He shook his head. "You did, ma'am. I just reminded you that empires are built by hands, not titles." His humility humbled her even more. They stood together in silence, watching the city glow beneath them. For the first time in her life, Victoria Wellington, the woman who thought she had nothing left to learn, felt the quiet pride of understanding something money could never buy, the power of human worth. 3 months later, Wellington Enterprises looked like a completely different company. The once tense and silent hallways now buzzed with energy and laughter. Employees who had once avoided eye contact with their CEO now greeted her warmly, proud to be part of something bigger than a paycheck. The company's financial reports showed record-breaking growth, not just in profit, but in retention, innovation, and morale. The board of directors, initially skeptical of Victoria's people-first initiatives, could no longer deny the results. During the quarterly meeting, one executive asked how she'd managed such a remarkable turnaround. Victoria smiled and said, "By listening to someone no one else did." The boardroom fell silent as she gestured toward the back of the room, where James Turner stood, humble as ever, holding his worn cap in his hands. "This man taught me that true leadership starts with respect," she continued. "He reminded me that every empire is only as strong as the people who believe in it." The applause that followed was genuine, even emotional. Then, in front of everyone, Victoria made an announcement that left the room stunned. She was officially appointing James Turner as Chief People Advisor, a new position designed to ensure that compassion remained the core of the company's culture. The older man's eyes widened in disbelief. "Ma'am, I'm just a janitor," he murmured. Victoria smiled gently. "No, James. You're the foundation this company was missing." That evening, as the building emptied and the city lights flickered below, Victoria found James back in the corridor, mop in hand. "You don't have to do that anymore," she said softly. He chuckled. "Maybe not. But I like keeping things clean, it keeps me grounded." She nodded, her heart full. "Thank you, James. For everything." He met her gaze and replied, "Thank you for listening." As he walked away, Victoria watched him disappear down the hall. The man who had changed her world with a single sentence. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like the richest woman in the city because of her fortune. She felt rich because she had finally learned the greatest secret of success: wealth isn't measured in money, it's measured in people.